the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name.
You're rich in love and you're slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name.
You just tell me when. I'm on. Great, that's fantastic. I can't tell that based on the display, but I'm gonna trust you. So, welcome. We're just gonna get underway in a few short minutes as people log in. While people are logging in and click on the link, I recognise that it's a little bit different to how we did it last year. But this is our third. Oh, there's a hand. Is that a hand for me, Warren?
We've just got music at the moment.
Oh, okay. No worries. I can talk to the music. I'm fine. Okay, so I'm good to go. Do I have to say all that again? Anyway, it's welcome. It's a little different this year. So glad that you can join us. It's going to be a pretty quick hour. We're going to get through quite a lot of stuff, and there's still a few little technical things that are working out, but after last year's adventure with our link, hopefully this runs a bit smoother. Conscious that we did it on Zoom last year, this time we're doing it on YouTube, so it's going to make interacting a little more difficult. But here's what we're going to do. You'll see that Gabby is on the comments section on the side there, or will be shortly. And as we go through our next hour or so, you're welcome to type any questions that you have in the comments. And then at the end, when we get to our question time, Gabby's going to pass those questions on to me, and we'll address it. I've got a spare chair here as well, and so we're going to have a few guests come in and out who are going to share various aspects of what's going on. But while people are logging in and joining us, I'm just going to open up in prayer and we'll get underway. So let me pray. Lord Jesus, it's so good to be able to be here this morning and to share a little bit of where the All Saints Network is at, and to be able to share and talk with our leaders across our churches. And I pray that we'd be encouraged and built up as we look to you, that you would build your church and that we would walk in step with your Spirit. And we pray that this year in 2024 we continue to make great progress towards the vision that you've given us for a network of churches making disciples here in Launceston, across the Tamar, Lord, perhaps even beyond. So we just commit this time to you now, and thank you for each person that's present online, and pray that it would be a great blessing and encouragement for us in Jesus' name. So you'll see we've got a little slideshow there that we're going to work through. So firstly, we've got a bit of ground to cover. So you'll see as I think I've got control of the clicker. I may not have control of the clicker. I don't have control of the clicker. But here we go. Here's what we're going to cover in a really short period of time, really. So welcome, as I've said already. We're going to update our city-to-city progress. That's the consultation that we went through and the outcomes coming out of that. We're going to talk a little bit about a leadership DNA statement. That'll become more clear soon enough, a code of conduct. We're going to get an update as to our building development, the building works at St John's, some exciting stuff around policies and our network council, connect groups, trauma-informed practice, alpha, and then we're going to have a quick chat about moving forward. And that'll conclude with some questions, some time for questions at the end. So we're not going to do this now, but I just wanted to pop this up. As a leader, whether you're a connect group leader or a leader of a ministry, maybe that's mainly music or Ignition, or one of our makers, one of our many ministries across the All Saints Network, it's worth, I think, taking a moment to reflect. It's always good to reflect. We engaged with these questions as a staff team just a few weeks ago. When you think about 2023, where did we grow? What did we see God do? What challenges did we overcome? What gaps emerged? What do we need to be aware of this year, and what are you thankful for? And you may not do that as a ministry team in your ministry, but let me encourage you to take some time to do that. But I think it's even worth doing that as an individual before God, to take some time, maybe a coffee like you are this morning, a notepad, a pen, and work through those questions and just seek the Lord and reflect on what how He was at work in 2023 and how that might shape and inform our ministry in 24. It's so easy, isn't it, when the calendar clicks over and it's the next week, the next day, the next month, and we just go on and keep doing without actually pausing to reflect and see what's happened. And that can be such a really good practice. So let me encourage you to do that. If you haven't yet, we're only just into February. It's not too late. And the bulk of our year is still ahead. So I wanted to kick off the next few minutes by revisiting the consultation report from City to City that came out at the end of 2022. We talked about it at our leaders launch last year, beginning of 23. And there was a number of recommendations that came out. And I think it's really important, if for no other reason, than to let you know that we are still engaging with these recommendations. We're still seeking to adopt them and adapt them to our ministry context, that this report has had a real bearing on how we do ministry and even engaging with the why we do some of the things that we do. So there were a number of recommendations that came out. I've grouped them together under some broad headings. So firstly, we were encouraged to continue to celebrate God's faithfulness through the ministry of the network. And part of that is gathering together as a network. In the last 3 years, we've gathered together twice. We gathered in February 2020, and then we didn't gather again as an entire network until February 2023. That's not a lot of gathering together. It's not a lot of big corporate celebration. So that's something that we want to begin, particularly post-COVID. Half our staff team at the moment have COVID. There's a fair chance you've probably had it recently too. But post, I guess, some of the ministry changes that came out of COVID, we want to get back to gathering together. So at the end of this year, December 1st, we're going to have a service of celebration and thankfulness as we gather across the churches of the network. And the hope is that we'll actually do that at the beginning and end of each year going forward. In fact, tuck this away, in 2025 we're going to hold a whole network dinner for anyone that wants to come and celebrate God's goodness to us. But let me encourage you as leaders to think about the ways we can celebrate God's faithfulness at a network level, at a church level, in both big and little ways. Anytime we see God at work, God give us eyes to see, is a cause and a moment to celebrate and just to acknowledge His faithfulness to us. Well, coming out of that, we were also encouraged to affirm the 4 churches, 1 network model that we have. And chief amongst that was to develop a leadership covenant for local leadership teams. So we are in the process of setting up local leadership teams. That was a recommendation coming out. Now, if you're at Georgetown or if you're at Southeast, you've had a well-established local leadership team for some time. All Saints North has the heritage of having an equipper team, and that's being reworked and transitioned into a local leadership team. And for All Saints City, so St John's and the churches that came into St John's, most of our local leadership team became the Network Council. And so there's a leadership gap there at a local church level. So Mark Delbridge has done a great job drafting a working document that kind of highlights what it looks like to be involved in a local leadership team. We're in that process of working that out together. At City, All Saints City, we established a local leadership team at the end of last year. And so if you didn't know, Roger Hesketh, Claire Keating, Oscar Owens, they are on our local leadership team. We're praying and seeking about adding 1 or 2 more. I know that Mark Delbridge has already begun to approach some people at North about joining a local leadership team there. So watch this space. That's something that's going to develop, and that I think is a really important mechanism and group of people to help our ministry teams engage with ministry at our church level and to enable and free the Network Council to continue to focus on big picture governance. Well, the next step is to develop a leadership covenant. How does the All Saints network and its governance interact with local leadership teams? And so that's going to be something we're going to be working on this year as we seek to articulate not just that separation, but and in that separation, that freedom to do what we've been tasked to do, but also to identify how we work together. And that's part of affirming the local identity and expression of each church whilst coming under a single network. The other recommendation that came out of 4 churches, 1 network, was of course to restructure the senior staff team and appoint a city pastor. It was well, for me too, I'm sure for you, but it was a pretty painful experience to farewell Mark Barry. And I know if you've seen him around the traps, he's still around. You'll know that he's settling in well to Longford Cressy and having a good time there. But we're in that process now of trying to seek the Lord and bring in someone to come and take the pastoral and ministry oversight of All Saints City. I'll still, of course, be at City in a support role, but that will free me up to work across the network. We're not there yet, you jumped ahead. And I just wanted to give you a really quick update. So applications closed recently, and we had a number of applications, which was great, praise God for that. We've shortlisted those applications, and in the next week or 2 we'll be inviting some people to interview with us. And let me encourage you to keep praying for that process and just seeing if one of these people that has applied might be God's person for us at this time here at All Saints City, and would be a great fit in the All Saints network. So that's underway, that's happening. Pray for Oscar, for Claire, for Roger as they work with me and as we discern and engage with applicants. We'll keep you posted, but that's underway. Well, I also wanted to let you know too, and you may have heard this already, that Ed Kavanagh is finishing up as the kids worker at All Saints City. He also had a network role there in terms of Ignition Junior. He's finished up formally. He's still volunteering for a few more weeks at City. But I wanted to let you know that too, because that has an ongoing impact, not just in terms of City and kids, but that flow on in terms of me and my capacity and what I'm engaged with. And so one of my tendencies is to overextend. In fact, the Bishop just recently apparently communicated that in a reference to some study that I'm doing. And there's some truth to that. When there's a hole, you want to jump in and fill it. You're like me. You see a hole, you see a need, you want to get in and try and keep things going. But the truth is that we're not going to be able to do that in the same way in this period whilst we're people down in our staff team. So we're going to try and set some expectations around what I can do and how I can contribute, but also need your help in working together. You'll hear some of the ways shortly in terms of how that's happening. There's a few other little things that have been going on that come out of the network City to City report. One thing, for example, was just working on our signage and our communication. So you would have seen there, not long ago we got our signs up at Georgetown. We've just got some new signage up at All Saints North. That we need to work on that for All Saints City, and there's a few little tweaks we want to make in terms of Southeast. But these are just little ways of just getting the word, the message out that we're the All Saints Network. We're 4 churches, 1 network, and I think that's just important to know. The other recommendation that came out was around our service times. And so one of the big shifts last year, and a great job to Mark and the ministry team at Georgetown and the Georgetown Church, is they're working together to shift their service times. And so Georgetown now meets at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, and that's been great for the church. I thoroughly enjoyed it when I went along catching church at 3 o'clock. It also means that Mark's able to better pace and spread himself across All Saints North and All Saints Georgetown, and so that's helped manage some of the difficulties around being present and getting people to help across our services. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we've done that. Well done, guys. That was a big effort. It's not easy to move a service time. It takes a bit, but that's been a really fruitful outcome as a result. And another recommendation that's come out of our City to City. So I've got a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to invite Greg. I've got to keep an eye on time because we've got a lot to cover. But I just wanted to take a couple more minutes to remind us of our 5-year vision statement. So let me read it. Hopefully it's familiar to you. We're 1 year in. We've got 4 years to go. But in response to God's grace and Christ's leading, the All Saints Network will raise up, equip and release courageous, Spirit-led leaders empowered to display the full gifts and the diversity of the body of Christ so that the gospel of grace will increasingly overflow in our churches, Launceston and beyond, bringing lasting transformation to people and communities until Christ returns. Now, I read that maybe a little quick for you to follow. Hopefully you can see it there. But when I read it, my heart says, yes, that's what I want to see, Lord Jesus. May your kingdom come and your will be done. And so we're going to continue to work to see that happen. And part of that was a background vision over the next 1 to 3 years. And you'll see there by December 2025, so the end of next year, we hope to have a clearly embedded articulation of the All Saints Network leader DNA, especially character, competency and conviction, a well-functioning leadership pipeline that raises up and releases leaders who embody the All Saints Network DNA, a network-wide culture that enables and celebrates the spirit-empowered leadership of a diverse group of people, and finally, a healthy All Saints Network church planted in Lagana. So we're still on track for those things. When we have an All Saints City Minister, I will take over the establishment of and development of leaders across our network, working alongside Gabby and others, and take responsibility for the development of a leadership pipeline. and we hope, God willing, to be able to launch an All Saints Network church plant in Lagana at the end of 2025. So that's still there. It's still something we're aiming at. There's a lot of pieces that need to come into play in order for that to happen. But we believe that that's a vision that God's laid on our heart. It's part of our DNA as the All Saints Network and part of Anglican ministry in Launceston over 200 years is to faithfully plant new churches where there's opportunities. So in the meantime, by December 2023, that was 2 months ago, we'll see a clearly defined and generally understood statement of the All Saints Network leader DNA. Now we're working on it at the moment. December 23 came and went, but we're engaged with it. I've drafted something. I've engaged with the network staff team. Here's a little bit of an excerpt from the preamble. We want to foster a diverse, multi-generational community of leaders who are effective in their roles, deeply committed to the spiritual well-being and transformation of the people we serve. And it's a testament to the network's dedication to creating an environment where equipping for the journey of following Jesus is upheld with clarity and conviction. And my plan, as we finalise that in a draft form, is actually to invite our leaders to comment on it, to engage with it. It's not just to deliver it and go, here it is, now you've got to get on board. But we've put quite a bit of thought and prayer into developing this, and I want to invite your participation and feedback. So in the next month or so, you'll be invited to read this and engage with it, to comment on it, and we'll take your feedback and we'll continue to work on what it looks like to establish a statement about being a leader in the All Saints Network. Here's an excerpt from the statement itself. An All Saints leader is committed to personal integrity. His life is continually shaped by the teachings of the Bible, with a view to being servant-hearted role models, living out the mission of living life well together in Jesus. That's certainly something I want to model and exhibit. I'm sure that you do too. That's what we want all our leaders in the network to get on board with. So you'll see that coming out in just a short time. So I'm going to invite Greg. Greg is going to come and join me. And while he does, I want to let you know too, we've been working on a code of conduct. You don't need to worry. G'day, Greg.
Good morning, James.
Great to have you.
Good morning, All Saints.
We've been working on a code of conduct. I'll talk more about that later. It's really just an outworking of the training that we already do in faithfulness and service. And there's a reason why we have it, but I'm not going to touch on that today. We're out of time. So Greg, it's great to have you. Do you really need an introduction? But just in case, I'm not going to give you a massive introduction other than to say that Greg is the chair of our Network Council. He's also a warden, one of our currently 2 wardens. We're looking for and praying for a 3rd warden to join both Greg and Gail. You also chair a number of ministry committees like our Property Development Working Group. And we're going to take a few minutes I can't get my clicker working, so I don't have a clicker. But anyway, at some point, some photos are going to pop up. But in the meantime, Greg, we've got some good news and some bad news.
Yeah, I thought we'd start with the bad news.
Start with the bad news.
Not beat around the bush.
Okay, I agree. I think whenever you get news, give me the bad news first. So, Greg, what's the bad news?
Bad news is that the internal renewal at St John's won't be completed until the 10th of May. That's pretty disappointing news, but the Property Development Working Group, which is a 7-person committee, which means that we've worked pretty hard to consensus all the way through, and it's doing very well. But the committee decided to prioritise quality and cost over schedule. So the bad news is it's the 10th of May.
Yep.
But the good news is that we're financially doing very well within our 1.98 million budget. And the plan is coming together extremely well. It's really exciting. So even though we started with some bad news, it really is a good news story, I believe, as you can see there in the photographs.
And it is disappointing. Like we're not trying to cover that. We only found out this week, didn't we? We haven't been sitting on this. Literally, we found out this week. Up until this week, we were planning that we'd still be in for Easter. We found out, I think it was Tuesday, when we met as a property development group, and it was a little bit like the air being taken out of the balloon. It was a bit deflating. We know, like you, we too are longing at All Saints City to get back in. We will get there. My encouragement in that was when I got back from Jordan, and I was told it had been delayed. It had been delayed 3 or 4 months, and then it was delayed another 3 months, and now we're saying it's been delayed another 1 month. So the gap is getting smaller and smaller.
It is indeed, James. And the committee prioritised warmth and comfort and intelligibility, because we had some difficult reverberation problems in the building, which were identified quite early in the piece after the building was built. Flexibility, and finally access and egress. Well, when we appointed a builder and went into detail, the costs, we found that we were quite substantially overspent, so we had to go back and trim the project, and the lowest priority was the access and egress, so we dropped that off, as well as quite a few other things. And in that process, we lost a lot of time. 1 to 2 months we lost through then, but we were careful, again, as a priority, not to overspend. So, but we also found financially that we had to add quite a lot to the scope that we hadn't anticipated. And I'm talking about things like we had to appoint an access consultant, and which ended up with us adding a wheelchair lift. We had to redo all the emergency lighting and signage. We had to add acoustic insulation to the ceiling of the nave. We ended up with a $25,000 diocesan building levy, which we hadn't anticipated, and the replacement of old wiring like the Carillion and others has added costs. So once we had trimmed those things back, we got the budget under control. But the work of the electricians has been unexpectedly slow. We probably should have expected it, but we didn't, because most of the work is being done from elevated work platforms or boom lifts.
You can see that there on the photos, some of those big boom lifts.
And you can only have one guy up there at once. And so our progress, we've done 40% of the high level work, but we're accelerating it from here with additional electricians being added by Contact, our electrical contractor. So the electrical work has been quite slow, and that's been the controlling factor with the increased time. But we've also had problems with carpet. The machine that produces the carpet in New Zealand has broken down, and our carpet delivery has gone from early January, we ordered it in plenty of time, and the latest is 22nd of March. So, and that's to Melbourne, so we've got to get it here after that. The switchboard has gone back and back and back and back, and the availability of tradesmen has been a limiting factor, and the availability of boom lifts, and it's not just any boom lifts, they've got to be very high risk, high lift spider cranes, has also been a limiting factor. And also the access to specialist consultants, because a lot of the work we're doing is quite specialised structural work. For instance, we've had to strengthen the trusses in the nave just for them to continue in their current capacity. So the plan is coming together, James, and we're really excited on it. So overall, I believe it's a very good news story in spite of us starting with a downer.
Yeah, look, it is a good news story. The work that's being done is being done to a really high quality, which you'd hope and expect. But it's great to see some of the results coming out. I saw some of the first photos around some of the new lighting that's gone in. There's still quite a bit of lighting to go, but my first comment was, look how good the building is. I'm going to have another idol to slay, because I thought, look, St John's is looking magnificent, and it will be a great delight to get back in. It's a very complex project. There's many moving parts, but I think one of the good news stories too has been God's provision of our builder, and he's
indeed.
just been such a great person to work with.
Very calming in challenging circumstances.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
someone who loves the Lord as well, and
Yep.
that's been great to be able to even open meetings in prayer and things like that. So it is coming together. It is being delayed. It does mean for City we'll still be at St Aidan's through Easter. May look on the bright side too. As the weather starts to turn, we'll get to turn the heating on straight away when we come back in. But we are looking forward to it. We will keep you posted. This isn't a secret, so please pass it around as you hear. As people ask, it'll be mid-May at this point, and we'll keep you informed.
Can I just add that the heating,
Yeah.
don't expect it to be toasty warm. It's going to be greatly improved, and with you wearing warm clothes to get to St John's, it will be comfortable, but it won't be toasty warm. We've got in one place an 80-foot ceiling, so
Sure.
it's never.
So we're not going to be wearing shorts and t-shirt
No.
inside, but it will be warmer than the 5 degrees or 4 degrees it was previously.
much warmer than that.
Oh, that's something we'll find out together, I guess.
We will.
So that's where we're at in the building. I thought it would also be good just to hear just for a few minutes about what Network Council's been up to and where we're at. I think there's some good news stories there, and I wanted to throw over to you, Greg, about that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Well, when I first became a Christian, I thought I'd be a minister or an evangelist, and it turns out I'm an administrator, and I didn't particularly like buildings because they can be such a distraction.
Sure,
and I'm refurbishing buildings and an administrator. But the truth is that the stability and strength of the church is built on administration and a firm foundation, apart from Jesus Christ, in the administration. And our Network Council is a very cohesive, cooperative group that has done a great job in providing stability and managing our finances. And they've done a great job with policies and procedures when we've got a full set in place now. And even the diocese looks to All Saints when it comes to policies and procedures. And so we've provided a really good help throughout the diocese to make our policies and procedures available. But we've got a full set, and I'd like to give credit to Ruth Chalk, who has done a marvellous job on putting together a great set of policies and procedures. And the council itself, of course, has to go through all these policies and procedures and bring them up to scratch. So we've got a full set in place, and I think that's a great job.
Yeah, I think it's been terrific, and I like your point about administration kind of, in some senses, being the backbone. I think the analogy in the book that's often used is the vine and the trellis. You need a supporting trellis in order to enable the vine. And a lot of what we've done over the last few years has been real trellis work. It's getting our policies up, even exploring, we were talking about before, about a leadership covenant between churches and network. All of that is about trellis work. And in some ways, I was thinking about this, it's kind of like some of what we've got is almost ahead of where we are, but it's like buying a shoe the next size up for a child that's going to grow into it. So it's like, actually, we need space to grow, and these policies, the administrative work that we've done, as time consuming as it's been, is really important in order to give us the confidence to grow into it.
Yep.
I think that's probably a good way of engaging with it. Now, you mentioned before that it's a cooperative group, this Network Council. Does that mean there's never a moment where we get passionate, or we have a disagreement, or an alternate opinion? It's always just smooth sailing.
We're people.
Right.
No, we have been accused on one occasion of being a rubber stamp and for James, but I can assure you that that's not the case, and there's plenty of excitable and vigorous debate and conversation, but it's been really constructive, and we've the whole council's got a heart for the Lord and is looking at ways to strengthen the All Saints network and the ministry led by James. So it's been one of the best councils that I've ever worked with, and
You've been on quite a few more than I have.
quite a few.
I've only been on a few, but it's very robust. I love how we engage, and I think it's a sign of the unity that we have in Jesus. And I think probably one of the things I like about it as well is the fact that whether you're from All Saints North or All Saints City or Georgetown or Southeast, when you get together, you're thinking about and you're passionate for the network and going, how can we advance the network under Jesus? And that's always a great encouragement. There's
I would like an advertisement.
Go for it. There's one or two.
We
spots
have
available.
a position. We have a position not filled, which is very surprising, given the clamour for everybody throughout the network to join the Network Council.
Given that it's such a great group.
It's surprising that there's a position available.
I'm stunned. I'm shocked.
If you are interested and you would like to serve, and there is some work involved, we'd be very pleased for you to contact James or myself about joining the network in this final position. And James, what are you doing about getting a third warden in place?
Well, Greg, I'm praying, and look, I have asked a couple of people who have not yet felt the prompting of the Lord there, but I recognise that we need some more help. A warden, if you're not familiar with the parlance, it's a really strategic and important administrative role, but also carries a real spiritual oversight in terms of the network too. And I'm really grateful to both you and Gail. Janet served in that spot, in that position really beautifully for a number of years, but because of her health has been unable to continue. And yes, I'm praying, if the Lord puts something in your heart, come speak to me. If the Lord puts someone else's name on your heart, you can, share that with me too, and I'm happy to dob you in. And I trust that we will have a full complement of administrative work as a full network council to continue to do the trellis work in order to enable the ministry.
Of course, the warden goes on to the executive, which consists on the existing wardens, which are Gail, Gill and myself, but also the treasurer, Peter Freak, and our secretary, Ruth Chalk. So you would, and James, of course, as the
and
lead
Joe,
minister,
our ops manager,
and Joe, our operations manager. So the warden goes on to the executive. So this is a great opportunity.
It is. I think you've sold it well, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. And again, people can't see you. They can only see the photos. So they're not going to see you blush. But I've discovered the way to make Greg blush is to offer many complimentary encouragements that are all true,
Stop, James.
all at the same time. And Greg does have many hats, but the work that he's put in as project manager of the building development is something that I'm super grateful for, Greg. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for being willing to come along and share with people what we're up to.
Thank you, James, for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you've heard from Greg. You've heard the advert with regards to our Network Council. You've seen some of the photos there around the building and what's happening in there. Danny Freak's been taking photos and putting together some photos of really to document the development. It is kind of exciting. But we're going to move from, I guess, some of the trellis work to some of the vine work. And I'm going to invite Gabby to come and join us. And Gabby, of course, is well known to you. If you're a Connect Group leader, you've enjoyed, I'm sure, more than one coffee with Gabby over the years. And everyone who meets with Gabby always comes away saying, what a delight. And you can be assured that however complimentary you are of Gabby, that she out-compliments you, and she says, what a delight you are. So I don't think I ever will, but I don't think I've ever heard Gabby say anything that could be considered neutral about somebody or negative. It's always positive. It's one of your great gifts.
Maybe we'll get there one day.
Maybe. Look, it might even be, maybe it'll be me and I'll be like, oh no, this is the moment.
Unlikely.
Yes, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to chat about a couple of things, but first, if I can get my clicker working again, which I can't get my clicker working again. So someone will click at the appropriate time and it'll take us, we'll wait for the click, it'll take us to a slide around Connect groups. We're going to talk a little bit about Connect groups, we're going to talk a little bit I'll talk a little bit about Alpha, some of the things that are happening, but I think it's just fair to say at the outset, right, let's just get it on the table, that Gabby Dunn has not become Mark Barry.
And never could.
And never could.
Never could become Mark Barry.
Who could?
No one.
No one could. It's also fair to say that Gabby Dunn has not become Gabby Dunn plus Mark Barry. No, that's an even more of an impossible task.
My blood pressure.
I know. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. But I want to just state that because Connect groups are so important to who we are in the All Saints Network. It's a really important part of our ministry, but also our structure and how we partially care for one another, how we disciple one another. And we're so grateful to our Connect group leaders. But we recognise that Mark put a lot of effort and time and thinking into that space. And obviously he stepped out. And I will certainly, in the future, give time and thought to that space. I am already in some degrees. But what's the expression? We're a man down. And so literally in this case, a man, but we're down. And so we don't have the resources to put in that we've had. And so at the moment, we're trying to think through how to support you and how to come alongside you well, recognising that we don't have the same capacity. And we know you're very gracious, and we know that you're also very good at communicating what you need and what would be helpful Connect group leaders. So please keep doing that. But know that we're trying to investigate and explore ways of supporting you that are perhaps less people intensive because we have less people, but still equip you for the task of Connect group leading. Gabby, in 60 seconds, why would people join a Connect group?
Connect groups are and will continue to be our main vehicle for discipleship, for pastoral care, for learning and growth and development. I know that you have said pretty consistently, James, that if you can, please make a priority of being in a Connect group. It's a really encouraging space to be, not only for you, but for everyone else in the room.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really good model for helping us to love God together. I mean, we do that on a Sunday in our corporate gathered worship. There's something about doing that in a smaller setting as well, that outside of our weekly rhythm of Sunday, that I think is really helpful. Obviously, it helps us express our love for each other, often in real tangible ways that can get lost in a larger gathering of worship. And I know this is a challenge for some, at least it's a challenge for me, but a Connect group can be a great place to spur us on in our love for the lost, in terms of how we pray for and engage with people who don't yet know Jesus, and how we might begin to journey with them in a journey of discipleship, knowing that they're yet to meet Jesus and trust Jesus. So I'm conscious that there are already a number of people who would like to be in Connect groups or are thinking about Connect groups. What would you communicate to our Connect group leaders? What's the best way of going about this at the moment?
So my hope for all of our Connect group leaders is that you always feel incredibly free to connect with me. I say that to you a lot. And another thing that I know that you've all heard me say from the front is that you guys really are the backbone of discipleship within all of our communities. But you're also very much a part of our welcoming and integration processes. And so what we would love for you guys to continue to be engaged in it is just being really aware in our communities of who is around, making yourselves accessible to those people as you can. And when people are saying, gee, I'd love to be in a Connect group, either directly to me or to other people, it's really wonderful if you guys can take a really proactive approach to helping to connect people in. Have a conversation with those who are already in your Connect group. Perhaps there's time at the beginning of the year for you guys to consider welcoming some new people in. There are always people who want to join Connect groups. There are always people who are waiting to be asked to join Connect groups. Or maybe your group is in a space at the beginning of this year where you've grown and you're thinking, oh gosh, perhaps we could split into two and invite some more people in.
Yeah, that's great. So we would love for you to be proactive in that. If you have capacity in your groups, feel free to invite people in if you think they're a good fit and they're looking for a group. But if you've got capacity, also let us know, and feel free to direct people to us so that we can prayerfully consider how we might place people and invite people into that Connect group space. Look, the other thing I wanted to quickly mention, Gabby, is Newcomers Lunch. So this was another thing that that Mark often did behind the scenes. When I say Mark, you are the engine room in terms of putting the lunches together. But we have newcomers welcome packs. We still want to have a newcomers lunch. Our first is on February the 18th. One of the ways that we're trying to just streamline it a little bit, you'll see that little box there that looks like it's got 3 eyes with dots. If you're not familiar with that, that's actually called a QR code. And that contains information or a link to a form that people can fill out that just says, I'd like to be invited to a newcomers lunch. So you'll see this up around the buildings, you'll see it on the slides at church hopefully tomorrow. If you spot someone that's new and visiting, you can simply say, hey, would you like to come to a newcomers lunch? You can join them, but you don't have to. You can just direct them to that QR code. And rather than, as previously was the case, we would run around with sometimes a clipboard and try and get people's names and details, etc. It's going to be so much easier if you can help funnel people towards us through something like an online form. Literally 3 questions, I think: name, email, and I'd like to be a part of a newcomers lunch. And we will be hosting that in just over a week's time, so a week tomorrow. So just a plug, but I wanted to let you know that now, because in the foreseeable future, we're going to rely more and more on things like QR codes and forms, automated forms, to help us streamline some of those processes whilst we don't have the same human capacity. So, Gabby, a couple more things. But one of the things we've been talking about now for about 6 months now, maybe a bit longer.
Yeah, 6 or 7 months.
6 or 7 months is about, I guess, being a safe church. You're going to talk a little about that. We've talked about that for more than 6 months. But also, I guess, being engaging in this idea of trauma-informed ministry practice. So that's going to be something we hear more and more about. But I wanted to just give you a couple of minutes to our leaders. It's not a lecture, and we don't have time for that, and I don't want to overwhelm people.
Stop me if I talk too
No, it's fine. But I think it's really good in this moment when we're speaking to our leaders to go, actually, this is something that's a really important thing, a space that we're moving into, that we want to. Greg talked about leading, in a sense, the diocese in terms of our policies. We'd love to be a church that leads in this area of being a safe place for people. So what would you communicate to our leaders about where we're at and what we're doing?
First of all, I would love to say thank you so much to everyone who participates in ministry, who's worked really hard with me to help us pull together all of our ministry programs at the beginning of the year. We've done a lot of Safe Church Communities training. I took over all of our Safe Church Communities processes about 6 months ago, which, thanks to Gail's supernatural administration, was incredibly smooth, and what I inherited was so organised. So thanks, Gail, for that. So we put a lot of work in over the last couple of weeks, making sure everybody is accredited to the point, to the level that they need to be accredited to participate in ministry safely. One of the real pros, I think, of shifting all of this Safe Church Communities work, which is a huge amount of work, which many people probably don't know how much work Gail has put in across the years. Shifting that to a paid staff capacity means that we have just a little bit more physical capacity to deliver training and development and ensure that people are accredited to where they need to be accredited in a face-to-face capacity, which is often really helpful for people. What I would really like every leader in our community to know is that I'm very accessible in that space. So if you are not sure what you need to be accredited to, whether you need to engage in our faithfulness and service code of conduct training, or if you need to do child safe training, send me an email. My job in that space is to help resource and equip leaders and ministries so that they are safe and so that they comply with the standards that we need to comply with. So far as I know, all of our ministry programs involving minors are set up and ready to go for the year, which is really exciting.
1 or 2 tabs I need to sign off on tonight, and we're done.
We're done.
I promise I haven't forgotten.
That's great, thank you. Our children at North will be so happy. It is a really important part of our ministry. I understand that sometimes it feels like there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and I'm really committed as a staff member to helping make sure that process is as smooth as possible for everybody that needs to jump through them. But the reason that we do this is so that our faith communities and everything associated with our faith communities stays safe and accessible and inclusive and stays compliant to policy that is applied to us.
Yeah, that's great. Look, I'm super conscious of time. I don't want to keep our leaders too long, but I do want to invite you for a minute or so to just reflect on what it looks like for us to, as a network, to move into this space that you might call trauma-informed ministry practice.
James reminded me in a really healthy way the other day that I'm always going to be someone who's really passionate about this for a number of reasons. Thank you so much to everyone who has taken the time to connect with me. James and I are both particularly passionate about this, but I know that our community as a whole, just from speaking to people, is really aware that faith communities should be spaces that are safe and accessible and are opportunities of healing for everybody. And one of the things that I know because of the level of expertise and insight in our community is that people are very aware that there is a whole cohort of people everywhere in the world who are particularly vulnerable because they have had experiences that are traumatic. So one of the things that we've been working really hard on in the background is trying to reflect on what it looks like for our staff team and our ministry leaders and our communities as a whole to consistently be places that are safe for everybody and that feel psychologically safe.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep working in that space. I've done a lot of drinking coffee with people. I've had a lot of conversations with James. Our staff team spent some time a couple of weeks ago thinking about how the principle of trauma-informed practice in ministry aligns with our vision and values as a church. But we recognise this is actually going to be a process that takes years to embed as automatic practice for our leaders, but also as a cultural norm for our church. So really it's a watch this space. There's going to be more happening. If you ever want to talk about it, please come and talk to me. It's my favourite thing to talk about.
That's fantastic. Look, last thing, and that's All Saints Alpha 2024. We're pretty committed to Alpha. We've been running it each year for a number of years, and this year, so last year we had a number of small groups do it in homes, and that was great.
Yeah.
Because we have a reduced resources and capacity, this year Alpha, Karen, if you don't know Karen, Karen's my wife. Hopefully you do know Karen. Karen and I will actually be hosting Alpha ourselves. And we'll have a number of people, leaders, who will join us, but we're going to host Alpha. And I want to invite you. There'll be more information to come out. We'll probably start towards the end of April. So just as a time thing, we're probably starting around April. But we're going to invite people across the network to even now begin thinking and praying about people in your life and in your circle of influence who might have questions about faith, questions about God, questions about their life and where they're headed, and whether or not you might actually consider inviting them to join us in Alpha. And you'll hear more about that. If you're interested in leading, you can get in touch with me and say, look, I'd love to be a part of the leadership team. We saw people come to faith last year through Alpha. We saw people grow in their faith. It was a really great experience. And we're looking forward to seeing what God does again in that space. Just to flag, probably April, Karen and I will be hosting. If you're interested in leading, let us know. Be praying now who you might invite, and you'll hear more about that in the coming months. I want to finish in that Alpha space by asking these three questions, which I ask of myself every year. Who will you intentionally invest in this year? Who are the not yet believers that you're investing in? If you're a leader, who are the believers that you're investing in? It might be the believers in your Connect group or in your ministry. Who are the potential leaders that you're rubbing shoulders with that you think actually, I think that there's scope for them to step up and to take on a leadership role? Jot these questions down, be praying about them, and do feel free to let me know and Gabby know if there are potential leaders to let us know. And I'm hoping as we seek the Lord, as we invest in people, we'll continue to see people come to faith and grow as disciples of Jesus. Gabby, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Now, I don't know if people can see, people probably can't see, but I'm going to take a walk. And that's okay, it doesn't matter if you can't see this. But I'm going to take a walk, and I'm walking across, I'm going for a stroll. And so I've left my desk. I don't know how it's operating. There's slides and there's live things. But oh look, there's Stefan sitting on a park bench in front of a tree. Hello, hello, Stefan.
What tree is
How are you?
that?
I know this park bench is very pew-like, isn't it? It's but it is. There is a tree. There is a tree behind us. So how are you?
Pretty good, thank
Look,
you.
we're just about finished our time today, and I'm conscious again of there's always so much to say. But I wanted to finish with just a quick conversation with you about a few things. Partly because, you know, as people know, we have a legendary rapport. We just have so much fun together. But also because there's some stuff happening that I think would be good to hear about. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that this year our theme across the network is the Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah.
And so I'm always curious as to what happens in Stefan's magnificent brain. When you think of the Kingdom of Heaven, what do you think of?
I think of God doing His work. I think of the word going out and His kingdom growing.
Great. So last year we looked at being a supernatural community. I think it's probably fair to say there's more that we could do and say and engage with that idea. What do you think about as we think about the Kingdom of Heaven this year? What do you think are some of the links between being a supernatural community and the Kingdom of Heaven?
For me, it's a little bit of follow-up because I believe as we listen to God and as we obey to God, God is building His kingdom through us. And I think discipling, it's basically that. Having people who listen, who understand God's word, who understand what His word is, and then follow and respond in obedience.
Yep.
And by doing that, we're building kingdom.
Yeah, great.
And, I think that is a fantastic thing. We're all kingdom builders in a way.
Yep.
We can't build a kingdom, but by obeying, God sends His seed out, and the kingdom is growing.
Yeah, right.
It's something fantastic.
So what are you looking forward to about this year?
I'm looking forward in as a Old Saints
Yeah.
network, you know, that we can find ways in how we can ask this question what you brought before us, that we have in our heart, God, what you're saying, where is there someone I could share about my experience, or where there is a person I can build up to be more faithful in his following, or, you know, helping people to mature in their faith, or where's the people we can invite in leadership. And that is in the Old Saints context, but also in Southeast.
Yeah, sure.
And we want to be relevant to community. That
Yep.
is something that's on my heart, especially in Southeast, that we're not just a church and the people see us and maybe one day might come in, but we want that people know us, that people see us and see how we live our faith, and that they will be inspired by it.
Yeah, great. So Southeast, we're four churches, one network. Southeast is one of our smaller churches in the network. One of the ways, and this is an opportunity for a bit of a plug, right? One of the ways I think we can grow as a network is churches supporting one another.
Yeah.
You've got something coming up probably in May,
Yes.
a couple of times this year, but the first one in May. What's that?
Yes. For the last 2 years, we have a family festival, what we do at a school in St. Leonard's, where we just as a church invite people to come along, especially families, and have some fun together. Kids have some games, but it's not that we look after the kids, the parents come with their children, and then we all as a community have fun together and learn to know each other. And it's a time where we can inform people about that we're there, that we're open to engage in their lives, and that we welcome them into our lives.
Yeah, right. That's great. And so one of the ways I think we could support you is when that comes up, would it be helpful for people to just come along and be present?
I think that would be very helpful. We have done this the last 2 years, and one of the things is that the numbers are responding slowly, and I believe as more families come and participate, as more it becomes a welcoming atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think if we would have a few families from the Old Saints Network coming along, having fun with us, and then joining in whatever is there, it will also encourage other people and maybe families who just leave the school and pick up their kids, say, oh, there's something going on, and they might be happy to join in and become part
Right.
of it.
So it's particularly open to people who like to have fun.
Oh, definitely.
So if you
yes,
don't
yes.
like having fun, you're off the hook. But keep that in mind. Around May, probably sometime in
Yes,
May, there'll be
yes.
advertisements going out.
Yes.
But just like a number of people came to the Kids Festival here at the end of December before Christmas, it'd be great to have families, and it doesn't have to be families, it can be grandparents with grandkids and things coming along and supporting the family festival. And just being present is a great way of investing in the ministry of All Saints without having to do a whole lot, with just turning
That's
up and
right,
having
yeah.
fun. Look, we've got a couple of minutes, so I just wanted to ask you how's pub church going? Because if you're new to the All Saints Network, you may not realise that once a month we have a service in the pub. What's that like for you, and how's that going?
We will have pub church this Sunday.
This Sunday. Well, what an
Yes,
opportunity to make a plug.
Yes, we're normally, I would think, between 15 and 20 people who turn up in a space in a pub where we celebrate a service, not maybe like in a church, but they're still similar. It is a church service. It's more geared for people to listen in and to find out what it maybe means to come to a church. And we have established a great relationship with the pub owners, with the people there. And I think it has become a little bit a thing now. You know,
Yeah.
people start realizing we are there, and we are sometimes surprised that people who not really doing things in the church are happy for us to do church in the pub, and we say it as a big privilege to participate in a space where we can share our faith, where we can share about what we know about God and how we invite people to participate. That people seem to at least not reject us, not kicking us on, but responding as well. And we hope that through that we will build more bridges between our community and us as a church.
Right. Has anyone at the end of the service just bought you a beer?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Well, that's something to aspire to, I guess. It's actually, I think the bishop later this year, in fact, I think in December,
He will come,
he's
yeah.
actually going to come along to
That's
one
right,
of the
yes,
services at Pub Church, which will be great. Maybe you could deck out the pub in purple or something. No, maybe not. Look, I feel
A good
like
colour.
Stefan, whenever we get together, it's lessons in chemistry. But just a couple of things. I'm conscious we've just hit 9:30. I said we'd go for an hour and we'll have some questions. So we've covered a lot in an hour, actually. It's my mind's whirring, going, oh, what have we said? A couple other things I just wanted to mention, which are important to know. Firstly, Ignition Youth has kicked off again. So yesterday, Friday the 9th, Lockie and his team got going. And I wanted to firstly thank a number of people. I won't name you, but I wanted to thank the new leaders that have joined Ignition Junior, with Ed finishing up and some of the holes created there. We're really grateful that a number of people have stepped up. And I love Ignition Junior. It's for grade 3 to 6, but it's one of those places where we do have people from multiple churches, kids coming together from North, from All Saints City, even from outside the church, coming and joining in. And thank you so much if you've just joined that team. We really appreciate it. Also, Ignition Youth kicked off again yesterday, and that Ignition Youth is a small but precious bunch of youth, and I can add my daughter to that now. She's in year 7, but over the last month or so, there's been a discussion that Lockie's had with his Ignition team about just how many leaders we've had. Lockie's done such a great job, and it's a great space, and we've had a number of leaders serve for many years, to the point where many weeks we'd have more leaders than youth. So a decision was made to reduce the number of leaders, and I just wanted to thank those who have served but won't be serving in Ignition anymore, or in a backup capacity, and for those that have reduced the weeks that they're serving. I just want to honour you and say thank you so much for the years that you've given in that space. And I look forward to seeing how God uses you in other aspects of the ministry across the network. I do be praying for Ignition and Ignition Junior. It's a really important space for us as a network. And thank you for your involvement there. I don't have a slide or anything, but I just wanted to also mention that in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be starting there's a new ministry starting called Reimagine. And I haven't even spoken to them, to the leaders, to find out if I can plug it yet, but I'm taking the initiative. And there's a number of young adults who have been talking about creating a space for people in that young adult kind of age who want to get together and explore the Bible, explore discipleship, explore harder things about the Christian faith, but also create a space for people who maybe are on the fringe of church or maybe are not connected to church at all, who are searching and want community and want to connect in and be known. And this Reimagine is really, I guess, a vision for that. And one of the things that I like about it, it's non-denominational. So there's a number of churches that are actually represented, leaders from across a number of churches. I think it's fair to say that Tommy McQueen and Josh Brooks are two of the leaders who will kind of be leading that as first among equals in that leadership space and engaging with me. But I'm really excited about what God might do in a space where multiple churches can engage, where there's a real heart to connect with young adults beyond the church. I think there's a real need for that in Launceston. I think there's already some good stuff happening for young adults in different spaces in the network, but I look forward to seeing what happens. So I believe that's going to kick off on I think the leaders are getting together on the 13th of Feb, but I think on the 27th of Feb will be the first one, where there's going to be more details to come in terms of where and time. It'll be a Tuesday night, there'll be dinner involved, etc. But watch this space, get ready for some promotional material, and let me commend that to you if you know people in that sort of 18 to 30 kind of space as well, who might be interested in building relationships, exploring faith, establishing community. That could be a great space to explore. Well, Stefan, we've covered a lot across the hour. My mind's blurry. If you're listening at home, maybe you've missed out on the incredible live action in the studio because we've just had the slides up. But it's been phenomenal. Some of the stuff, that puppets, shapes we've made with our hands and things like that have been incredible. But thank you so much for joining us. We've hit our time. If you need to go, feel free to go. There'll be an update that comes out of this that will help connect with some of the stuff that we've covered, particularly newer things like our leadership DNA statement, etc., that I'd love you to engage with as leaders. But we're going to have some question time now. So there may have been questions that have come through over the last hour or so. If you need to go, feel free to do that. Be blessed. Thank you so much for participating. So grateful to have you as a leader in the All Saints Network. Please get in touch with us. Please flag your passions, your desires, your concerns, the things that we can work on. Even as we move through this period of transition where we have less and fewer resources from a people perspective, we still want to serve you and equip you well as you lead and equip and model that to others. So, but if you can hang around for about the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to answer a few of the questions that have come through. Are there any questions that have come through? There are no questions that have come through. We did such a great job that there's been no questions, or the internet's been down the entire time and nobody saw this or heard
some
it
good
for 30
bloggers.
seconds. Or maybe exactly, some good blockers. So anyway, well, look, no questions. That's great. Questions are great too. But thank you again. Hope to see you in church tomorrow at whichever church you're worshipping at. Have a great time. Yeah, we'll be in touch and be blessed. Thank you. We'll sign off then. Is there any prophetic words, Stefan, to finish off with?
Have a coffee.
Have a coffee. You've heard it here, Stefan. Have a coffee. Well, why don't we go and do that? And yeah, we'll see you later. God bless, and thank you so much.
Amen.